Good evening. Welcome to another Hot Button Issue broadcast right here on Choice Television. With me, Timothy Polium. We conclude at about 15 minutes after 10 o'clock this evening with the clip that peaked. And of course, we have a very interesting guest on the broadcast, as always, and we'll be focusing on some wide-ranging issues, those issues which continue to confront us in our society that we call St. Lucia. So we continue the search for answers on this broadcast, and I'm sure you'll be able to get the opportunity to pose your questions to my guest and also interact with her as well. Quite a fascinating individual, I do promise. But first, let's focus on the situation at the Castries Comprehensive Secondary School. There was a sit-in which was staged there earlier on today by teachers at the school. They're saying that they had enough with regard to leaking roofs, cracking walls. Mold infestation is definitely a problem, and they're seeking to send a message to the authorities. We have a report from Miguel Fevrier. That report was filed this evening during the Choice News Now broadcast.
The teaching service is not exempt from what appears to be a very shaky industrial relations climate here in St. Lucia. Staff at the Castries Comprehensive Secondary School staged today a sit-in due to what they consider crumbling infrastructure and mold infestation, among other things. While the students have remained in class, the teachers are not a part of it. Wednesday's protest, according to shop steward Joanne Annaville, was a culmination of years of unheeded complaints about the dilapidated condition of the school. A number of classrooms have since been abandoned due to falling bricks brought about by the deterioration of concrete beams and the fears of the effects which black mold may have on the health of both students and teachers. Termites and leaky roofs have also rendered some classrooms unusable.
During the second week of school, we had to shut down one of the classrooms, 2R33, because there were huge chunks of concrete that were being dislodged from the ceiling and falling onto the floor. And of course, you can imagine what can happen if this happened to hit a student's head or any other parts of the body. And following that, after this 2R33 incident, it was 2R31, where a piece was dislodged, and this time hitting a teacher, Mr. Hippolyte, who is currently out ill. And that very afternoon, yesterday afternoon, one of my students, while awaiting the Spanish lesson, was hit with yet another piece of concrete that was dislodged from the ceiling.
All Form 2 classes at the school have been evacuated and located to various points in the school's outside hallway. Annaville says the school staff has been patient with the Ministry of Education, but enough is enough. A 25-page document was sent to the ministry highlighting the issues faced by the school. That, according to her, has fallen on deaf ears.
This document is a comprehensive document which also includes photographs of a deteriorating plant. And this, like I said, was 2011. We are currently in 2015. In 2007, we had to close down many of the labs on the science block because there was black mold. And, well, there's clearly, with the presence of black mold, I mean, teachers would not be able to, nor students would be able to function properly in such conditions.
While there have been complaints of respiratory conditions, the shop steward says they have not been directly linked to the mold infestation. This perimeter fence has been a source of concern for teachers and students alike, following regular visits by a naked individual who constantly appears near the fence displaying lewd sexual behavior.
This is going to be our first step, and hopefully something is done. You know, somebody hears us, somebody else becomes concerned for the nation's children, and therefore this has to be our only step, because I don't think that we need to, take this much further for persons to see, because as you would have seen from the footage in the different classrooms in the different areas, I mean, this is a dire situation, so hopefully this is our first and only step. We're hoping that this doesn't get much further before something is done.
The shop steward adds that officials from the Ministry of Infrastructure have visited the school on numerous occasions, but they are yet to fix the problems. Miguel Fevrier, Choice News Now.
Thank you very much, Miguel, for this report, which was filed this evening during our Choice News Now broadcast. And joining Hot Button Issue, former student of the Castries Comprehensive Secondary School, a former government minister, former minister with responsibility for health, and the former MP for Castries Central, Mrs. Therold Wobra. Welcome to the program.
Good evening. Welcome Thank you, Timothy, and welcome viewers to the program as well. And it's a pleasure to be here. Good evening, viewers.
You immersed yourself in that report, and I'm sure you hacked back to a particular period when you were a student at the Castries Comprehensive Secondary School. Your thoughts?
Very disheartening, Timothy. I mean, I visited the school recently on an errand, and I didn't go all the way in. And once I got into the gate, I could have seen that the school had really deteriorated. I mean, of course, I left there many years ago, but it's disheartening to see what we just witnessed. I mean, we expect a lot from our teachers. They give a lot. We demand a lot from our students, and I think people need to have the tools and the right environment to produce the best that they can produce. And I'm hoping that the authorities do something about this very quickly. I mean, of course, the fact that it's my alma mater makes me even more concerned, and it is disheartening. I mean, the pictures we saw, they're just totally, I mean, unacceptable, really, to expect. I mean, students and teachers are in danger. It's not a conducive environment for study. And, you know, it's sad that it has led to this, that the teachers have to take this action. And, I mean, clearly, something needs to be done quickly.
But easier said than done. And
Yes.
you have been there before. I remember you as health minister appearing on when I was the host of Newsmaker Live on several occasions. And people would bombard you with concerns and complaints
Yes.
with regard to the quality of service, particularly at the Victoria Hospital
Yes.
and so on. You were not ever able, I mean, to satisfy the concerns and address the complaints of all those people
Yes.
who were bringing those issues to you.
But
So you understand?
Yes, of course. I mean, there are scarce resources, and I mean, everything cannot be done all at the same time. I mean, when I was Minister of Health, we were able to do some significant things. Of course, not everything. I mean, we were able to revamp accidents and emergency, and that was tremendous. We were able to revamp mental health as well. We started the first mother-to-child HIV prevention program. There was a lot we were able to do. But going back to the comprehensive school, you know, I think it's a question of not allowing our, you know, the school to deteriorate to such an extent. I mean, we have to keep maintaining public property. We have to keep maintaining the things we have so that we can improve and move to the next stage. When we allow a school to deteriorate to such an extent as we saw here, it's going to be more costly for us to deal with it. And of course, you're talking about students who have to sit exams, teachers who have to work in this environment. Look, I mean, of course, we had a teacher there who is now ill. And so if we don't deal with problems as they arise and we allow it to escalate, it's going to be more difficult and more costly. And that's the point I wish to make. I mean, why is it that it has come to that stage, you know? And of course, the person who spoke said that they've been complaining ever since 2011. I mean, something ought to have been done. I mean, maybe the changes need to be done in an incremental way, but something needs to be done.
Is that what we do with everything that's happening in St. Lucia? Whether it's healthcare, whether it's the state of the economy, whether it's our own attitude towards St. Lucia, whether it's the unemployment situation, whether it's crime, that those problems are passed on from government to government. I'm sure issues relating to the school plants and the state that it's in would date back to even when you were a government minister up to now. Why we do not have this fundamental change, the
Yes.
significant change taking place in our society?
I think it's because people are taken for granted. And until we as St. Lucians, you know, really demand what we deserve from people we elect into office, unless we show them that we mean business, it will not happen. I remember during my time as the Minister for Home Affairs, when I had responsibility for the Boys Training Center. I mean, for so many years, decades, we were speaking about the Boys Training Center. And it's only when there's industrial action there that a little something is offered. I mean, we have said for so many years that you cannot place children who are in need of care and protection together with children who have committed crimes and even serious crimes. And it's still happening today. And it's only when there's industrial action at the Boys Training Center that a little token is given. Now, how can we change this? People have to say, enough is enough. Unless you do this, we will take a stand. It has to be that way, unfortunately. Unfortunately. I mean, governments are accountable to the people, and we must find ways of holding them to account.
Whilst you were Home Affairs Minister, and you just made mention of the situation at the Boys Training Center, which was certainly unacceptable. What prevented you from making the necessary changes?
Well, you know, when you're not a Minister of Finance, you know, ministers go through and civil servants go through the annual exercise of preparing project proposals, of preparing new initiatives, and, you know, you hardly get what you ask for. And this is not to say that we didn't ask for it. I remember particularly there was one occasion when we were actually going through the estimates of expenditure. And I had requested for some new initiatives for the Boys Training Center at the time. And during the debate in the House, there was industrial action, and something was done. But we need more than just that. We need people to be concerned, to really care, to say, what is it we need to do? And I think what has been happening with our politicians, and I'm not excluding myself necessarily, what has been happening is we've been doing just enough to get reelected. We keep on doing just enough to get reelected, but not ready to solve the problem. I mean, even during my time as Minister of Health with the Golden Hope Hospital, you know, we spent a lot of time dealing with mental health. We made some changes at the existing facility. Because it was limited, we were able to get help at the time promised for the new facility. And I was asked the question, you know, why are you spending time, so much time on mentally ill patients? I want to remind you that they do not vote. I was told so. So that we're doing...
You were told that by a fellow cabinet minister?
I was told so.
By someone in cabinet?
I was told so. Why are you spending so much time on the mentally ill? I want to remind you that they do not vote. So you're talking about a situation where too many of our politicians don't really care about people. Of course, they see people as votes, but they don't really care about people, and I think that is what the problem is. I think that's what the problem is. And I think our people know it, but we need to have the courage to do something about it.
Do you really think that people are aware of this? Because we have always been told that the United Workers' Party has its core supporters. I think about 30%.
Yes.
The same number for the St. Lucia Labour Party. Then you have the floating vote. Now, it's very often it's people who are not political in nature. They're the ones who determine the outcome of a general election.
Yes,
Don't you think that
voters.
those are the swing voters? Those are the people you think you need to convince that politicians really and truly, invariably, they're just out there for the vote, as opposed to looking after the interests of the people?
Yeah. Now, I do want to clarify what I say. Not all politicians do that. But given the way things are going, it would appear that too many of us politicians do that. And yes, it's a two-party system, and I mean, it is unfortunate that it continues to be so. But at the end of the day, people want to vote for a party that they know will form the government. And that is where, you know, people cling to their base. They want to form a party that they know will form the government. And of course, you have the floating voter who is going to read the manifesto, who's going to see what the performance was like at the end of the day. And I think, yes, we have to appeal to the floating voter, who is going to make an informed decision, not just based on whether it's red or yellow. So
it's turned out to be very difficult in terms of people having faith in politicians. We're at a stage now where, for example, in the United States, look at the presidential elections on the side of the Republicans, and it comes across as very comical, but it's true that you have Donald Trump, who is saying the weirdest of things, who is boisterous and so on, who is insulting people, women, etc., and he's leading in the polls. But people see him, irrespective of what you have to say about him and being critical of him, people see him as being authentic.
Yes, and on the hand, also in Britain, for example, you have Corbyn, who was just elected as Labour leader, who, you know, doesn't really look anything prime ministerial. He's really far left, and people were quite surprised. But he won the Labour Party post as leader by a very wide majority. And, you know, in both these cases, what people seem to be looking for are people who are honest, who will say things as they are, not necessarily be politically correct all the time, but will tell things as they are. And I think people are looking for that kind of honesty. I mean, people, I think, want to be able to believe that a politician will do what he or she promises that he or she will do. And if you can't do it, you come up front and say, well, I can't. We promised this, but we can't because of so and so. Because, you know, Timothy, so many of us make promises with good intentions, intending to do, but circumstances can change. And so I don't think people are looking to hold politicians to their promises regardless. I mean, our people have shown themselves to be reasonable, but they want to generally be able to believe someone who says, elect me, and this is what I will do. I will try my best to do this. I think that's what people are looking for.
If you were to re-enter the political arena, what about you would change?
Well, I think my approach in the sense that, I mean, I would certainly go in with my eyes open. And I would...
And maybe that is what is adding to the problem of not being able to ensure that you balance things out in terms of looking at the various issues affecting St. Lucia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to deal with this from the point of view of the Public Accounts Committee. You know, and that has been a sore point for me for a long time. And I remember during my time as Speaker, I tried to get, well, the leader of the opposition, who's normally a chair, the chair, to hold a Public Accounts Committee meeting. I mean, this is such an important committee that is supposed to really review the government's spending of expenditure, spending of resources after the financial year. So, I mean, the government comes in and says, okay, we want to borrow $1 billion, or we want you to approve spending of $1 billion. And fine, Parliament goes ahead and gives the government, enacts law to allow the government to spend that money with all projects. And then the following year, the Public Accounts Committee is supposed to sit and say, well, okay, you had so much, these were the projects, what have you done with it? And the last time this was held, I think, is during the time of Julian Hunt. And every year, government comes back into Parliament, and every year we increase the sum of money that we give government.
Was that an issue for you while you were government minister?
Well, I mean, of course it was an issue for me, but I didn't understand at the time so much what really it was. But when I became the Speaker of the House of Assembly, when I began to look at the committees of Parliament, and when I began to go into the records, and I saw how far back this Public Accounts Committee had actually met, I felt that this was actually totally unacceptable. Because, Timothy, this is what it's like. I mean, you gave your daughter $20 to go to the shop, and you said to her, buy milk and eggs. And she comes back with the eggs, but not the milk, and she gives you only $5 change. And then you ask her, but where's the rest of the money, or where's the milk? And she just doesn't answer, and you just give her $20 and say, okay, go back and get it. And that happens
even if you even delay in asking her.
Right.
Because if you have the Public Accounts Committee, which is inactive,
right,
that means it's not asking any questions.
Right. And then there is a strategy where it's purposely not done, because you find what happens is, because the leader of the opposition is the chair, that leader of the opposition would have been reviewing the accounts when they were in government. So nobody wants to review it. And this has just happened where we've just gone in and year out, even increased the amount that we were giving the government to run the country, and they have never accounted. Now tell me, in what business environment would that ever prevail? I mean, you'd have a CEO being fired immediately for that. And this is what happens in St. Lucia, and we as St. Lucians have just taken it. And government has just been, we have just increased the revenues of government, and taxes are increasing on us. This is our money, and we are not asking government to account. I mean, how can that ever be allowed to prevail? And this is what has been happening in our country for decades.
So everyone, therefore, is culpable as far as this issue is concerned because, as you rightly said, the head of the PAC is the leader of the parliamentary opposition. And if no one is pushing for it, is there a situation now, for example, Mrs. Therold, where it appears that our 17 elected MPs are ganging up against the people?
Well, I want to ask a question I think is even more important this time. What are the people going to do to ensure that government accounts for taxpayers' money? I think it has gone way beyond expecting parliamentarians to look into their actions. I think it has gone way beyond that. The people. It's us.
As
It's the
a
people.
lawyer, what can the people do?
I mean, we live in a democracy, Timothy. I mean, the people, look, we saw what do you call it, a sick-out stage of the comparative school. People have ways and means of calling the attention of government. I mean, this is serious. I mean, people don't mind paying taxes. But I think what is important is stewardship. I mean, if people are going to pay taxes, they want good services. They want to see what government is doing. They want an improved quality of life. They want good health care. They want good infrastructure. They want good roads. They want good, safe schools, a good environment. And they want to know whether the monies that were given to government was spent in accordance with the situation in which they were given. And that just has not been happening. And government just gets away with it. That is a serious issue. Timothy, I honestly believe that in this situation, the people of St. Lucia have every right to say, look here, do not tax us anymore. I mean, look at VAT. Look at what it has caused. Look at how much distress and despair there is in this country. You have an unemployment rate of 24.4%. You have the youth by and far affected by unemployment. I mean, our suicide rate has increased because people have lost hope. They're in despair. They're in distress. You have no money in your pocket, but when you go to the supermarket, the price of goods are even higher. I mean, parents can't afford to send their children to school. People cannot eat a balanced meal. We have a serious problem of childhood obesity. We work together to help those young people find employment using their skills and talents. I mean, we have SEDU, we have STEP, we have all of these initiatives, but they don't seem to be able to bring them back. And I think it is important that we find those young people where they are, bring them together, call them forth, help them, ask them to show us what their skills are, what their talents are, and bring the people together who can help them come together and form businesses with those talents. It is really important because our young people